Wait a few minutes. See, time lapse is 2 minutes and 20 something seconds. I don't know. I'll wait maybe another minute. So, hello, my name is Julene Allen. I am a diversity, equity, and inclusion leader. I'm actually CEO of a company called Women of Color in the Workplace. I am also a thought leader, and which is what my channel is all about, is discussing a number of issues, social issues, life issues, diversity and inclusion issues. And I'm also an artist. I'm actually in my studio doing my live stream. On Mondays, I'm streaming live during the day. And what my live streams are all about is a myriad of things. Last week, I talked about my reaction to my vaccine, my first shot, and the fact that it was, because I have a history of eczema and other skin issues, the reaction to that shot was not good. This week, I want to discuss one of my favorite characters. The show is actually the series is actually streaming now on Netflix, and it's called Queen of the South. And the main character of this series is her name is Teresa Mendoza. I found this character so striking because I started to relate a lot to the way I started to relate to her in a lot of ways. Teresa Mendoza, if you aren't familiar with her character, she's this young woman that found herself in the middle of she's a queen, she's a queen pen, right? And so she's a queen within the cartel by coincidence, but not by coincidence, by circumstance. A series of things have led her down the road to becoming a big queen in the cartel. She, started off. Her fiance was working for a cartel leader, and then her fiance died in the show, or supposedly died. He later she found out that he was actually alive, but he died in the show, and she had this. She was left with this book, and this book had a lot of key information about the guy that her fiance or boyfriend was working for, the cartel leader at the time, and his name was Epifanio. And so it had all this. Apparently, her boyfriend Guerrero had documented a lot of information about Epifanio's business dealings. And so she had this book, found herself on the run, and she ran into really Epifanio's like competitor, which was actually his wife at the time, who was a big drug queen pin as well. So her name, the character name was Camila. Camila was ruthless. Teresa was ended up working for Camila, but she was also trafficked. Camila had housed a lot of her workers in this warehouse. They couldn't leave. And so they had to smuggle drugs from one place to another by swallowing the bags. And so that's what Teresa ultimately ended up doing initially, was that she found herself being forced to work for Camila. Along the way, Teresa had a lot of smarts, right? So she ended up earning Camila's trust, and actually kind of handling business for Camila, right? Kind of being Camila's face for some of her business activities. And so along the way, Teresa found herself, she ended up no longer working for Camila because Camila broke her trust. And Teresa found herself in a number of situations where she was being challenged as a leader, or as this growing leader, as a woman. Her competence was challenged. She was laughed, mocked at, called names. And it was all because, number one, she was a woman, and number two, she was a Mexican woman. So eventually she ended up making a lot of money doing what she was doing. She had built her own empire. She made a lot of money, but for some reason, she didn't want to opt out of this life. She also had a responsibility. Her best friend had died earlier on in the series, and she was left taking care of her best friend's son. And so her best friend made her promise to make sure that her son would be safe. And so in reality, her best friend's son was never safe as long as Teresa stayed in this lifestyle. Actually, his life was threatened on a couple of occasions because of Teresa's lifestyle. And so Teresa continually, she would move from one city to another to climb power, to build relationships, but it never seemed like it was enough. And the more wealthier and powerful she became, the more trouble she ran into, right? The more her life was threatened, the more her people's life would threaten, or her people would become caught in the crossfires. And so basically, on the other side of this, she imagined and she envisioned a life that was not being happy. And it was like she didn't opt out so that she can live this life that she wanted to live, because that would mean probably being in hiding. That would mean um, living a quiet life, right? Being in hiding. But of course, she could have accomplished that because she had made so much money at this point. But it seemed like what became more important to Teresa was that she needed to prove that she was a leader, that she was competent, that she needed to prove to people that she wasn't, just some woman from Mexico that didn't know anything or whatever, because she was discriminated a lot. She ran into racism. And so I feel like we all can relate to that character in some way, because how many times have we've encountered situations where people may have felt that people underestimated us for whatever reason. Maybe it was because of our age, maybe because of our race, maybe because of our gender, maybe because of our height, maybe it was because of our background and where we come from. How many times we've been in situations where we've been underestimated and we wanted to prove people wrong. And so this was so important to Teresa, it was important to prove people wrong. And therefore, she didn't want to opt out of this lifestyle. And she never really, and you know where that road leads, right? You live by the sword, you die by the sword. So basically that road will lead to nowhere eventually. But this was so much more important to her than being happy, which was so interesting that I felt that we can relate in a lot of ways, but I feel like on the other hand, or I can relate in a lot of ways, but I feel like on the other hand, we can't live by perpetually live our life based on what other people think of us and how people perceive us. And when we do that, we're not really living for ourselves, we're living for someone else. And in a sense, I feel sympathetic to her cause and why she's doing it. No one wants to be underestimated. But then at the same time, I feel pity because she's not happy. And so now this young man that she's responsible for it appears that he's headed for the same road or path. So I'm saying all that to say that it really gave me a lot to think about, or allowed me to pause, because I have ran into situations where I've been underestimated, right? Being a woman, being a Black woman, and I'm often underestimated. And I know many of us can relate to people challenging us or telling us that, we can't do certain things or we're incapable of doing certain things. Therefore, we don't live the life that we are destined to live. And so I feel like Teresa's character taught me to kind of reassess and reprioritize my life and the things that I want out of life. And hopefully, this may be helpful to you, and maybe it may get you thinking about like what's important versus, why you might be doing, why you may be fulfilling, whether it's a profession, whether it's a marriage, or maybe you're trying to pursue status. Maybe you're trying to pursue an educational goal. Maybe it might get you thinking a lot about like what's important and what may be versus what makes you happy. I hope that makes sense. um, but that's all for now. I stream live every Mondays. And if you haven't checked out the show, Queen of the South it's on Netflix. I believe all the series are on there. I just saw that they are discontinuing the series possibly, and then I think the finale it's sometime in June. But it's a great show, and it seems like they lined up this character so perfectly to get a lot of people thinking about how Teresa is making decisions and how she's how she's making these mistakes, but then at the same time you feel sympathetic to the fact that you understand why she's making the choices that she's making. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. I hope you tune in next Monday. I'm streaming live during the day. If you want to find out how you can tune in, you can subscribe to my channel by clicking on the button below. All right. Have a great Monday. Bye.